I am Marcus James Dixon with Gold Derby, and we are happy to welcome Danny Strong to our directors panel for Dopesick on Hulu. Danny, you've been through this Emmy whirlwind before. You were nominated for Writing Recount, and you won for writing and producing Game Change. But this is your first directing nomination. What does it mean to be recognized by your fellow directors in the TV Academy?
Oh, it was so thrilling and exciting. I didn't expect to be nominated as a director, and when it came in, I was pretty blown away and quite moved by it, to be honest with you.
And you're also up for producing and writing Dopesick. Overall, the show got 14 total Emmy nominations. And I'm curious, the story chronicles the rise of the opioid epidemic in America over many different years. What does this project mean to you? Why did you decide to take on the show?
Well, it came to me from producer John Goldwyn. He approached me about writing and directing a movie on the opioid crisis, focusing around the Sackler family. And once I started researching it and started diving into it, I was horrified by the actions of this company, Purdue Pharma, that was micromanaged by and run by the Sackler family. And the extent that they lied, deceived, obfuscated the effects of their drug OxyContin. And no matter what happened, no matter what news stories, investigations came their way, they would not back down, and they just kept selling harder and harder and harder. And they kept lying till this very day. They continue to lie about their drug. And liars make me really angry, but liars that cause mass deaths and destruction for the profit of one family is one of the most upsetting stories I've come across in modern American history. Alex Gibney made a documentary about it called Crime of the Century. And I think that's a perfect title. I think this really is the crime of the century. So I really wanted to just expose what this company that was run by this family did to the country.
And the specific episode you are nominated for directing and writing is the finale, The People versus Purdue Pharma. The beginning of that episode is where we see the protests at the museum in 2019, and they're shouting, "Shame on Sackler." It was this really powerful moment. Mare Winningham has the look on her face because her character, she's remember her character who died of drug abuse. What was filming that protest scene like? Was it really tense?
I wouldn't call it tense. I think there was an excitement. We'd been shooting the show for many months at this point, and the Sacklers, they always win. They always get away with it. They always weasel or buy or influence peddle their way out of it. And then here was the first scene that we shot, which showed that they were going to be exposed in not just a national level, but an international level. And that's why I put it into the show, because the majority of the show takes place from 1996 to 2007. And then all of a sudden in the final episode, we're in 2019, and that's how we open. Well, why 2019? And it was to show the audience that this villainy that we have been watching for these last 7 episodes, with the end of episode 7 being sort of the tragic climax of the story, that there would be some reckoning for what they did, that this would become very famous, and that there would be protesters protesting them all over the world, getting massive media coverage. So there was something cathartic about that. And then putting Mare's character in the heart of that protest, to me, felt like the perfect culmination of her arc as a character. And that was actually mapped out from before I started writing the pilot. I knew that was going to be the arc of Betsy's mom.
The show received 6 nominees just for the actors. You have Michael Keaton in lead, and you have Will Poulter, Peter Sarsgaard, Michael Stuhlbarg, Caitlin Dever, and of course Mare, who we mentioned. Please tell me there was some sort of group chat on Emmy nominations morning where everyone was just congratulating each other and celebrating. It was a big moment.
Yeah, it was incredible. Lots of texts were flying everywhere, and there were some people that I was so excited to see get nominations. I mean, I was pretty confident that Michael Keaton and Caitlin Dever would be nominated. They've been nominated for so many awards up till now, and Michael had won them all. He's literally swept award season with his beautiful performance. And then to see Michael Stuhlbarg and Peter Sarsgaard, Will Poulter, and Mayer get these nominations was so thrilling for me. I think Michael Stuhlbarg's performance maybe the most difficult in the show. He was playing a real life character, someone that is very, very strange individual. The way he's described by people, he's despised by millions for his actions, but he's also despised by the people closest to him, which has been publicly written about. So it's a very challenging character of how do you portray that and dimensionalize it and not just be a two-dimensional villain. And what Michael did with that performance was really wonderful. And I just, all of them, they're so great. Will Poulter getting nominated. He's just the greatest guy ever. And it was not a flashy performance. It was very much sort of this very very true life character and very, very just grounded performance that was so nuanced and layered. So it was, I just love seeing him get that nomination.
And this is kind of a cliche question, but I'm dying to know, what was it like directing Michael Keaton? I mean, this guy's a legend, and I don't think you'd ever worked with him before. Is that right?
No, I hadn't. I loved working with him in this function. I found him so down to earth, probably the most down to earth movie star I've ever met. I mean, he's just a great guy, and he's so cool. He's so real. And I felt very comfortable with him being on set. He's either as the showrunner or when I was directing the episodes. I didn't find him intimidating. I found him just open and not, he was never concerned about himself. He was always concerned about the story. Is the story being told? Is there clarity in the story? And I could tell early on that he was giving an award season performance. There was just such nuance. And that was before we even got to the character's turn. And just seeing how powerful he was before he became addicted, I thought, wow, I think this performance really gonna make some waves. And then when we got to the portion of the character where he becomes addicted, it just went to a whole other level. And it's pretty thrilling to be witnessing a performance like that. And we shot him in 6 weeks. So we block shot all his work, which was very challenging in that we had 3 directors working sometimes on the same day. And I was one of the 3 directors. And then I was simultaneously supervising the other 2 directors during the Keaton block. And it just was a lot. And by the end of it, there was this moment where I had this realization of, I've got his entire arc shot and it's gold. This performance is incredible. And there was this freedom in knowing that I had this unbelievable performance going into the rest of the shoot. And we stopped block shooting and started doing, normal episode blocks after that. So it was a unique situation, a challenging one, but it had its rewards in having, that whole arc shot and in the tank and not even being halfway through the process.
For a story like this that's still going on in the world, like, how do you know what the final scene is of your series? Like, you did end it with Michael Keaton in group talking about the importance of pain. What made you decide that would be the way to close out the show?
Well, there was so much new information constantly coming throughout production, through post-production, very unique challenge to be working on something in which there's new information and events happening while you're in the middle of completing the project. And so for me, the show was always going to be the origin story of the crisis, right? So it was going to be 96 to 2007, and we were going to tell how this all happened and the crimes that created what we're now living with. But I thought, well, I do want to catch the audience up as much as I can to present day. And so I decided to make the final scene, that speech Michael Keaton gives, for two reasons. One, so that I could end the show on character and not on information, so that the final scene of the show is the fulfillment of Michael Keaton's of his arc as a character. And then simultaneously, with that speech he gives, it was to give a thematic resonance to what the whole point of this show was about, to end it on theme, to, so that it could, and I hope this doesn't sound pretentious, but so that it could be not, information, but a piece of art or something that's attempting to be art, right? So I wanted to end with theme, and what this whole experience was about for the audience over the course of these 8 episodes.
Well, Danny, it's such a great show, and congrats on all the nominations. Stick around. We're going to do a group chat at the end here. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcus James Dixon with Gold Derby, and we are happy to welcome Nneka Onuorah to our directors panel for Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Grrrls on Amazon Prime Video. Nneka, the last time I talked to you was before the nominations, and now here you are, an Emmy-nominated director. Tell me what that morning was like when you got the great news.
I was actually in London working on another film with Time Studios and Rock Nation on another, icon, Meg Thee Stallion. And I was actually going to shoot B-roll in London, and I was in the car with a sound person who I'd hired from the Lizzo project onto this project, and one of the camera people as well. And we were all in a van and eating a bagel from London. And I was eating my bagel and just talking about old war production stories. And then I looked down at my cell phone and I saw congrats girl on Lizzo. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. The show's been great. Da, da, da. And I was like, then I got more and more text messages. I'm like, what is everybody talking about? So then Marissa from Amazon, she texted me, she said, oh my God, we got nominated in 6 categories. And one of those is outstanding directing. And I said, oh, like you saying that, I got nominated in the category. She was like, yeah. And so we just all started screaming, and then it just happened back to back because we also got, sound as well. And so someone from the sound team was on my new project. So then they got excited, and we just had this big celebration right in front of Big Ben as we were trying to get a shot of Big Ben. So it was thrilling. It was very exciting. I had just won the Critics' Choice Award, and I was still trying to process that information. But it was just a win. I hit up the girls immediately, and I was just like, wow, the bravery of you and allowing us to, share your story in that way has really inspired the world and is showing up in so many ways in our lives. And just got to celebrate, via social media with them. Lizzo sent me flowers, almost that same day to my hotel in London. And it was just beautiful. It's just a beautiful surprise this year.
The episode that you submitted to the Emmy consideration for directing is called Naked, and it was the 4th episode of season 1. What was it about this episode that you felt was just so strong that this is the one that should be submitted?
Episode 4, I feel encompassed a lot of nuance, but also just vulnerability, bravery, and a lot of beautiful dancing. Lizzo's song Naked was the driving force of that episode. And the girls had to actually do a nude photo shoot. And, when you strip yourself of other people, the expectations you have of yourself, it takes a great deal of bravery to do that. We had a lot of tension on that show because a lot of the women were nervous to actually go nude because they're like, what implications does this have, going further when you look at someone like Isabel in terms of her Korean culture, expectations of parents and things like that. And then also just seeing them be so brave and confident in their skin was such a beautiful payoff and so emotional that I felt like this episode was such an honest, raw, and vulnerable one, and it encompasses everything that the show speaks for. Which is a sense of liberation and inspiration.
I totally agree. It's like a microcosm of the whole show. This one episode, you kind of get all of the themes in this one, hour-long episode. And in this episode, Lizzo talks about body positivity and how it's a new concept because the norm used to be self-hatred and body negativity. So it must be so rewarding for you as the director to be on this journey with the girls and help them discover their true beauty.
It is extremely rewarding. I was a dancer as well before I was a director. And so I've experienced, as a plus size woman at the time, just experiencing rejection, people telling me constantly that I wasn't, what was ideal. And so understanding that background knowledge and listening to Lizzo, her music, her story, what she's gone through, and really spending time with the girls to see what they've gone through, I really felt like that all attributed to everything. And to be honest, like so many people are experiencing the same thing at home. So it's like, it really is the time now to really be discussing that. And I think coming post pandemic, it's actually, people are looking for a way to revitalize themselves, get active and, accept themselves and have self-love. And that's what I'm all about, is self-love. And that's what Lizzo's all about. And clearly the girls too, they were just an example and inspiration to us all.
And you mentioned the nude photo shoot. What kind of precautions did you all take to make sure the girls felt confident, they felt that they could trust you and that they were in good hands? One of the contestants actually said after the photo shoot, she said, "We are leaving today with love in our minds for ourselves."
Absolutely. Before we did anything, we had a discussion about the comfortability of the girls. We had support team that was there almost as house aides, mothers, guidance, healers. I mean, if you look at the whole season, we actually had women who shared these girls' experiences to help them feel good in their sensuality and in their bodies. And so I think it's the progression of what the competition series actually did, is that we brought in people like Rashida, who came in before this, naked exercise to teach them about sensuality in their bodies. And it brought the girls to tears to let the trauma out of their body. And so I think it was a process of building up to the nude photo shoot. And then beyond that, having support there for people to talk to them, and also playing to the truth, because some of the girls decided to keep their robe, halfway on, or some people went, used props to cover parts of their bodies. And so it was about respect and comfortability. We had house rules from the beginning. And then we had like people there. Lizzo's sister, was one of the house aides. She's like a healer. She's like just a beautiful person. And she was also there to support the girls. So a lot of it was about a lot of communication. We communicated with these girls. It was a journey. And we committed, all the people working on it, to going through that journey with them. And that's what's so special about when you create a project or a film, just sharing the experience so you can understand, so you don't exploit, and so you don't just, make people uncomfortable.
There was a dance performance in that episode where all the girls break through the glass panes with negative words written on them. And it's such this emotional, fulfilling scene. Did you know as it was happening, could you tell this is a really powerful moment? We have to make sure we capture this perfectly.
Oh, absolutely. We knew that 100%, especially when you have to break glass on a stage. It's like, you can't do 50 takes of that. So we were very intentional about making sure we had full coverage of all the girls. We had close-up coverage of them. We had coverage wide. We just got every possible angle in that specific take because we knew we had to break the glass. And we wanted it to be raw and emotional when the girls broke that glass, that they're really feeling that moment. When you look at the choreography and you see the reaction of Lizzo standing up and clapping and the rest of the panel as well, it's because literally the girls were breaking through something that they had to visually look at. And it was just so powerful and emotional. In the control room, we were crying. I remember running out of the control room straight to the girls after, because of that power. And you just know when you're making a show, when you're reacting as you're making it and you're watching it as you're watching it on screen, when you're creating it, that's how you know that it's going to be something special.
In the past 5 months or so since the show was released on Amazon Prime Video, what kinds of stories have you heard from fans on the streets? I imagine a show like this is life-changing to a lot of viewers at home.
It's beyond life-changing. I have a story in which the girls actually came to LA to teach their own dance class. And, you know, me and the girls still keep in touch after the show, and the girls invited me to take the dance class with them. So I showed up to the dance class. We're all just dancing. They're doing a beautiful job. I was watching, then they put me in a little piece of their dance routine. And then this woman came, who's a plus size woman. She had a funeral that day. She left the funeral and came and said, I knew I couldn't make this dance class on time, but I couldn't leave. You guys have changed my life. I couldn't even stand up for myself after being bullied. And she experienced so much trauma from family. She came in her black dress from a funeral to just hug the girls. And we have a video of, you know, her hugging the girls crying with her. And they're just such beautiful people that they were supporting her and talking her through that. You know, in the middle of the dance class, it turned into like almost like a session to just let out all of what everyone was going through and experiencing still, you know. And these are the girls' real lives. This is not just some competition series where, you know, people win money and go home, or, you know, something like that. They still live in those bodies to this day. This is a real thing. And so seeing how much people were impacted, and people who are not plus size, who were like, I need to get my confidence together, I need to get my dance moves together. It didn't only, you know, impact people who are plus size, just people who had issues with confidence, being bold, stepping into their power, and people who like are finding it difficult to like fight against their own subconscious, negative subconscious. So I feel like, you know, seeing that happen in real time and just seeing how quickly people were responding to the impact said a lot.
Well, congratulations again. And I love that you found out the news standing in front of Big Ben, because isn't Big Ben the ultimate big girl?
Exactly.
Awesome. We'll see you in the group chat.
Thank you.
I am Marcus Dixon with Gold Derby, and we are happy to welcome Nick Murray to our directors panel for RuPaul's Drag Race on VH1.
Hi there.
Nick, you've won this category twice before, in 2018 and 2021. What does it mean to be recognized again by your peers in the TV Academy?
It's a little overwhelming at times. I mean, I didn't expect this yesteryear as a teenager wanting to direct television many moons ago. So this is beyond my wildest dreams. I'm living the dream, if you will. Yeah, I'm flattered, humbled by it all, and it's so exciting as well. And for the show just to receive all these accolades year in, year out, you know, it's unbelievable.
And this time you're nominated for directing the season 14 episode Moulin Rouge, the Rusical, and there is a 10-minute production number toward the end of the episode that would normally take months to produce if it was on Broadway, but you guys just had days to put this together.
Well, we had there was a degree of a pre-production, of course, with all these things, but the actual choreography, once the music had been approved and everything, the choreography, set design, lighting, and actually shooting it, we shot it over 12 hours. It was all done over 12 hours.
That's crazy.
The previous day came in, camera blocking, lighting rehearsal, and camera rehearsal, and then we shot it pretty much as live, which is a testament to the crew, the most amazing crew that we have on the show here.
Are the musical episodes, are they like the most technically challenging?
For me, they're my favorite part of shooting the show, whether it's shooting Ru, whether it's shooting a Rusical or the lip syncs. I really enjoy it, and I get excited, at the prospect. So we got another music number or performance to shoot. It's one of my favorite bits of directing the show. And every year I like to think that we add a little bit more production value, a little bit more flair, visual flair, little small nuances in the way we move a camera around, just to convey these great performances that our girls give.
And this was also the episode that ended with Bosco opening the candy and revealing the golden chocolate bar. That was such a fun moment. Everyone was cheering. And
it was over a year ago we shot this, and I'm like, oh yeah, it was the chocolate bar.
Do you think
It's chocolates, finally.
yes, all the memes, it's chocolate.
It's chocolate. Yeah.
Is this a twist you think you guys will bring back? Sometimes you do twist just for one season.
Possibly, never say never. I mean, every year we always come up with something new and compelling and interesting and invariably super fun. To keep everyone interested in the show and what have you. It was really exciting because I didn't know who had it. There was only a select few on the production team that knew who had it, so it was a big surprise for all of us. And we programmed the lights to turn gold, as you saw. So the the lighting people were ready to hit the gold shiny button if chocolate was revealed.
My favorite of the season was Willow Pill, and I was so happy that she won season 14.
Right.
You as a director, do you ever get personally invested in the competition aspect, or do you find yourself rooting for one over another?
I mean, not in particular. I mean, they're all so good, and and they're all winners in their own way. So and I'm always interested and invested in their journey through the whole show and hearing their stories and seeing them. A lot of they come on, they change within the space of a whole season and evolve into better people, better more improved versions of themselves, more authentic versions of themselves. It's wonderful. So, but to be personally rooting, I mean. I had a little thing for Lady Camden. I mean, I am British.
Yeah.
I thought her finale performance was incredible, as was Willow's, obviously. But I did think that she really slayed that, her original song in the finale, and then they both did an outstanding job in the final lip sync, and Willow just had it, But Willow was, I spent a lot of the season laughing with Willow. Very super creative, fun, with an incredible, backstory. It was super fun season, really.
And season 14 was also the year of trans representation. Some contestants were open about it before the show began, and others came out on the show or later. Drag Race really has become the safe space where people feel comfortable in their own skin. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, right from the get-go, that's been something that we've tried to exude on the show, and it's something that is inherent to Drag Race. Be your authentic self. It's a super safe place to be yourself and to convey your stories to everybody. It's something that both on and off the screen is very, very Drag Race. It's super important. We love it. It's a real family feel on set, in front of the camera and behind the camera. And the acceptance and the inclusion of everybody it's the number one thing on the show, I think. Be yourself. It's a very safe place to tell your story. And I think, it's one of the special things about Drag Race is that you can come on the show, feel totally safe, and be vulnerable and be open. And, we want to hear your story, and then we want to tell your story to inspire, other people who may be in the same situation.
If I have my numbers right, Drag Race has won 24 Emmys, and if it wins 6 more...
I thought it was 25.
You could be right. It's a lot.
I know, so many. You can lose count.
The show is so close to becoming one of the top 5 most.
That's right. I read that. Yeah.
I think it just needs 5 or 6 more to become one of those top shows.
It's been on for. It will have been on. 14 years, 14 seasons. They shot the first. I've been involved since season 3, but they shot I think the first season in the basement at World of Wonder, or something like that. They always said it was this little show that could, and in the space of 12, 13 years, it has become literally a global phenomenon. And I think the most culturally important show, well, one of the most culturally important TV shows of this generation.
That was really evident when I went to DragCon for the first time. It was insane. And
isn't it insane?
Yep.
It's everywhere, and it's totally mainstream now, and it's wonderful. And you have kids going, you have octogenarians going. I get into a taxi in New York. Oh, what do you do? And we end up, oh my God, Drag Race all over the world. I'm going to Iceland next week. I guarantee I'll be talking, in a bar with some locals about Drag Race everywhere. It is truly a global phenomenon, and that's down to Ru.
Final question is, you have so many guest stars on the show. Is there a dream one or two names that you could throw out as people that you would love to have on in the future?
Everyone talks about having Cher on.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure that'll happen, but it would be unbelievable if it did.
You had her family on, right? Was Cher's family members on?
We had Ru's family members on.
Okay.
Cher, Diana Ross. I'm just thinking of all these icons that are Ru's favorites, I think, to have on the show. We've had some great guests on, though. I mean, Cameron Diaz was one of my favorite, and Jeff Goldblum had everybody in stitches. He was quite it was a wonderful day on set when he was on.
Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, Nancy Pelosi twice. That's right. Yeah, we've had
Well, Nick, congrats again, and best of luck at the Emmys. Stick around for our group panel in a little bit.
Thanks for having me on board.
I'm Marcus James Dixon with Gold Derby, and we are happy to welcome Karyn Kusama to our directors panel for Yellowjackets on Showtime. Congrats on your Emmy nomination for directing the pilot episode. And this is your first Emmy nom, but you've been around the film awards scene for a while now. So what does it mean to get nominated for this TV show?
Well, first of all, it's just such an honor and such a delightful surprise. Honestly, for me, I think it says a lot about my particular transition into aspects of TV, but a lot of film directors into television. I think it's so incredible to see a more cinematic approach be rewarded in television. It's just fantastic.
And the pilot you're nominated for, I love how it opens. I love the first scene, the mysterious snowy scene. And there's all the whispers, and the girl falls into the death pit. It really set the tone that anything could happen on the show. And I'm curious, what made you all decide to open with that scene?
It was always part of the script. It was from the very beginning. It was conceived that we were watching someone who had the strength and the agility of an athlete, but also very quickly we realized is running for her life in some way. And so it was always part of the conception of it that we start with something that out there that doesn't feel anchored to the rest of the show entirely.
Mm-hmm. And Yellowjackets is so unique because it fits into so many different genres. It's drama, family, coming of age, and of course, like mystery, adventure, horror. How do you as the director flow so effortlessly between all of these different styles?
It was a huge challenge in reading the script and imagining how to approach it, but I realized it's also the reason I wanted to do it. I'm really drawn to work that I call a genre mashup. I find myself really interested by the collision of tones and the collision of I want to say narrative expectations. I find that to be really exciting to watch. I personally am really drawn to that kind of work. And so for me, it was just about allowing all of it to be real, even if it was outrageous. So the humor, the horror, the family dynamics, feeling like it had the texture of real life, even if it was really heightened and somewhat theatrical at times. And so that was the core kind of guiding thread for me as I was approaching that very tricky tone.
The casting of the show has been praised universally by everyone, particularly because the show had to cast teen versions and adult versions of the same characters. And I'm curious, as the director of the pilot, were you involved in the casting in any way, or can you talk about that aspect?
Oh yeah, it was actually one of the most time intensive components of prep, because this was before COVID, so we were sitting in a tiny room, Ashley and Bart, the creators, and our executive producer Drew. We were just in there with the casting directors, meeting and working with actor after actor after actor. And I feel, particularly with a challenge like this one, where you needed to create that bridge between the older and younger versions of the characters, I like to spend a lot of time with actors in auditions, because I think that's how I get to know what they're capable of. So I don't just take the first reading that they offer in an audition at face value. And so it was a really time intensive process. It took a long time to land where we did with everyone.
And 7 Emmy nominations overall for Yellowjackets, including drama series, directing, writing, casting, and 2 of the cast members, Melanie Lynskey and Christina Ricci. So what's it like working on a show that doesn't just have this awards recognition, but of course the super fan obsessed viewers who analyze every single line?
Well, I mean, it's really fun. I feel like that's how I approached the script and the successive scripts as a director, like as a super fan, because to me, that's part of my job, is to find my most intense levels of engagement across the story. And so it was so cool to see that there were people watching the show with that level of obsession and engagement, because I feel like that's some of my most powerful memories of storytelling as a younger person. But to your point about casting and Melanie and Christina and Tawny and Juliet, there was something about working with actors who had been in the business for a long time, who had seen kind of all facets of the business as actors, light and dark, and they really brought a lot of that, I want to say, institutional knowledge, but also institutional trauma as women into their characters. And so I feel like audiences were also responding to that. They felt like they knew these women or had relationships with them from childhood or from adolescence. And it made for a very powerful brew in a weird way in terms of watching it. Because I think we came into the stories feeling like we already had a relationship to some of those actors.
The cliffhanger at the end of episode 1, where the plane starts going down, is one of the best cliffhangers of any pilots I've seen in a long, long time. Like, how could you not watch episode 2, after finishing that? What was your reaction when you read that in the script, that's how your episode would end?
I felt scared. I mean, I was like, I hope I can pull this off in a TV schedule, because a plane crash is no small feat to execute on screen. And so it was an incredible challenge to figure out, how do we tell the story of a plane in the air and then a plane going down? And it was really fun. We had this plane set on a giant gimbal, actually moving to and fro and throwing characters back and forth. It was an amazing feat. It was really fun.
Of all the mysteries on the show, some have been answered, some have not. Are you, just as a fan, super invested to find out like one particular answer? Like what happened? I want to know when the girls kind of talk, when the adults talk about, we have to keep what we did a secret. Are they just talking about the murder and the cannibalism, or did something else happen out there?
That's your sort of special.
That's my number one.
That you have.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think because the show so boldly explored the idea of an unwanted pregnancy and even opened up the door to a homemade abortion that ultimately a character just decides not to go through with because she's afraid of dying, and she's right to be afraid of that. That is probably the most emotional storyline for me that I'm interested to see how it resolves in season 2.
If Yellowjackets invites you back for season 2 to direct another episode, what would you say? Would you want to return to this world?
Oh my gosh. I for a second there, I was like, if Yellowjackets invites me back, yes, they've invited me back.
Okay.
And my plan is to be directing the finale. I'm really excited.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And final question, is there a scene from the pilot that you as a director you're the most proud of, that when you go back and watch it, you think, I can't believe we pulled this off. I love that we did this.
What I would say, because I'm really proud of everything in the pilot, but there is a montage at the end of close to the end of the episode that checks in with essentially every young character, the night or the day that they plan to get on that plane. And that montage was always in the script. We had to fight for it because it was just a lot of little scenes that were really hard to find a place for on a schedule. And yet, even though those little scenes felt like small details, the cumulative effect of that sequence to me is one of momentousness and a sense of lives about to be forever changed. And so I'm really, really happy and really proud that we were able to fight to preserve that sequence and then get to shoot it and get so much insight into characters that we might have thought were supporting characters initially, and that, of course, over the length of the season and successive seasons potentially are really important people to the story. So I'm really proud of that sequence.
Well, congrats again on the nomination. Best of luck come Emmy time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It was lovely to speak with you.
I'm Marcus James Dixon with Gold Derby, and we have an exciting panel today of Emmy-nominated directors. Please welcome back Danny Strong from Dopesick, Nneka Onuorah from Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Grrrls, Nick Murray from RuPaul's Drag Race, and Karyn Kusama from Yellowjackets. So this is a question for everyone, and let me start with you, Karyn. When did you know you wanted to be a director, and what was your big break in Hollywood?
Wow. I knew I wanted to be a director after a spring and summer when I was 13 years old, and Martha Coolidge's Valley Girl and Amy Heckerling's Fast Times at Ridgemont High came out about the same season, and to see their names on the screen at the end, it was just really powerful to see a woman's name. And suddenly I thought to myself, oh, wait, maybe I can do what they do. My big break was probably after I made my first feature called Girl Fight. I just got an opportunity to meet a lot of people and, get an agent and get a little bit of support in the business. And that changed my life considerably.
And Nneka, how about you?
I really initially started in music television. I worked with all the Viacom companies, MTV, VH1 and stuff like that, BT as well. And I felt like I wanted to have agency over the stories that I told. So I took 10,000 of my own dollars that I had saved up in my 20s, and I had created my own documentary called The Same Difference, which is about internalized homophobia within the Black lesbian community. And when I end up traveling to like 250 cities that year, just alone with that film, I realized that it was a part of my purpose, is to connect to communities and be able to tell authentic stories that normally don't get to be told in a commercialized world in a commercial way. And I moved to Los Angeles and got signed to WME just by being at a party, talking to a random guy about my story. I had no idea that he was an agent at all. I was at Lena Waithe's Thanksgiving episode, Emmys nomination celebration. So it's funny how it all came full circle to be Emmy nominated. After I got signed with WME, I did the show My House on Viceland about the underground Vogue community, what happens since Paris is burning, basically, and really got to make my footprint on documentary, doing documentaries for Netflix and The Legend of the Underground about Nigeria's underground LGBT community who are getting arrested for, lack of freedom of self-expression, with John Legend as well. And after I did that film, that HBO film, I feel like it really allowed me to stamp my style of storytelling, which is super immersive, super honest, vulnerable stories that uplift. They don't just like tell sad stories, even though someone may be in a sad circumstance, but it shows how empowerment can come in a community that's normally oppressed. And so I feel like my big break, it's interesting. I never feel like a big break. It's always work to do. And I actually started directing to do Q&As. I went to a Dee Reese Q&A when she did the film Pariah at Viacom, and I saw how people were so inspired and it changed their lives when they had the conversation after the film. So I was like, how do I get to that end result where people feel liberated? And I was like, all right, I guess I got to do a film. And so that allowed me to find myself and my stamp here. So I think this time now is really solidifying who I am as a filmmaker and my style, my voice in storytelling.
And Danny, how about you?
Well, I was, and I still act, but my first 15 years of my career was as an actor. And then for the first time on the movie Recount, which it was a movie I'd written for HBO, the movie got made and I was behind the camera, not as a director, but as a writer on set. And the director was this incredible guy, Jay Roach, and he wanted me there for everything, which does not always happen on a movie. And I remember day 3 or 4, just being behind the monitor for 4 days, watching the process. I knew I wanted to direct from that moment. And Jay was so supportive and he could tell, that I was jonesing to do that. And so was constantly giving me advice and was extremely helpful, but it would be another 7 years before I actually directed something. And then as far as my big break goes, I love the answer that you don't feel like you've had your big break. Like, I feel that same way. Like, everything feels like the stakes are so high every time and I'm learning every time. But it was that same movie Recount where I had been, just trying to pay my bills with any acting job I could get for the last 15 years. And then when this movie, when I wrote the script and it really blew up and just completely changed my career. And I just started writing, movie after movie, and then created a TV show and went from there. So everything stemmed, this sort of shift in my career from pounding the pavement actor was from this one movie, Recount.
And Nick, how about you?
So I grew up in a BBC household. My dad was at the BBC, and I used to go to work with him from a very early age. And he was mainly in radio, but I became instantly fascinated with the whole television process. The lights, the cameras, the studios, the technical side of it all. And I just, at first I thought, it'd be nice to be actually on television, maybe. So I sort of got really excited at any prospect of being in an audience at the age of 13, kind of got me excited. And then the first time I ever sat in a control booth and watched the director of a live show, I sat right at the back and I just watched him, and instantly I said to myself, that's what I want to do. So it was around the age of 13. I forget which show it was. It was a BBC show in Manchester, and I just became obsessed with it from that point onwards. I was always very visual, very interested in the technical side of it, staging, the photography, the lighting. And I suppose, I had a very indirect route getting into television. I worked as a software engineer for a while, and then managed to get a PA position at a new network that was starting up in Rome in Italy. And after a year there, I moved to Sky Television and eventually managed to blag my way onto a directing course and did a lot of stuff, a lot of live television, live news, live sports. And then I suppose my big break was working on the first UK Big Brother 22 years ago, part of the directing team. And then 5 or 6 years later, I moved to the States, and then I can't really remember my big. Oh, that's right, when I got to direct season 3 of RuPaul's Drag Race, and the rest they say is history.
Marcus, I forgot. Like just listening to Nick, I just remembered, and this is a part of not processing anything about career, because I feel like as directors, we all have to go to the next thing and the next thing. But a week before Lizzo, I directed Barack Obama on the show that I directed called the G Word. And it was one of the most just shocking moments that I probably still haven't processed it yet. But just a person as powerful as Barack Obama, having to explain to him what he's going to do when he's so regimented about, how he is and how he works, was like something that was a dream come true. So I didn't want to like ignore that fact that was a part of one of the times where I was like, okay, something's happening here.
Yeah, that's a big one. What was he like in person?
He's powerful. Like I thought I saw power before, but Barack Obama has a level of composure that's almost like a methodical, state-of-the-art, cool, composed, sharp.
Seems like he's very, very nonchalant. Comes across as super cool.
Yeah, he's so cool.
With very nuanced, but you can tell that he's in charge.
Yes, he has like, it's hard, is oftentimes you don't see like a level of poise and composure, coupled with being in charge. A lot of people take power to be like a very specific way of going about things, yelling or bravado or ego.
No, but he's incredibly considered as well. That's what I particularly like about him.
Absolutely.
He thinks before he opens his mouth, which is always useful.
Absolutely. And what was beautiful is, he was asking me about one of my choices that I made, and it was up to me to like decide if we're going to stick with this creative or change it. And, I stuck to my creative, and he really respected it. He was like, Nneka, you run a tight ship, Nneka. I love how you didn't move on that thing. And so, it was beautiful to see like how he respected the craft of, filmmaking. Like, you're the filmmaker, this is what I do, so I'm going to listen to what you advise at this moment. So that was beautiful. He's great.
Karyn, I'll come to you for this one. What is something you know about directing today that you really wished you would have known at the start of your career?
Oh God. Well, there's so many things, but I guess I would say that you'll never figure it all out. I mean, that it's this endless series of questions, and coming up against the questions and the obstacles is the job. And there's something really liberating about coming to peace with that, because I think it used to sort of feel like something I was going to have a greater sense of control over as a director. But in fact, I think what I'm becoming more comfortable with is how much I don't have in my control. And that's actually, that's been the biggest lesson, is sort of to just take a deep breath and relax minute to minute and day to day in the job.
Yeah, in a way, the job's never finished. There's always something new and interesting to do, a different job. It's not like that's the end of my directing job. Oh no, something else coming up, something new, interesting, challenging. And obviously the older you get, I think, it's this country really, which is why I love working over here, pays a lot of respect to experience that's gained as a director, and more so in this country than the UK, which I always found interesting. But it's for me, saying the word stop, to be able to pause and redo something, rethink something through. At the beginning of my career, I just let things, and I directed a lot of live stuff. So during rehearsals, it was like, oh no, it's going to get out of control. But to have that control and then to reset, rethink, and then redo, for me, is something that I've learned over the years. It's like, no, stop. This is what we're gonna change something, and then it'll be fine. And that's something I didn't know when I first got into all of this.
And Danny, what about you?
Everything. I mean, I every day I'm on set, it's as if I'm starting from scratch to a certain extent. I mean, I'm just sort of open to the process. I've over prepared in the past and then gotten to set and then thrown everything away. And I think that there's something to preparation, to having a plan, but also being prepared to just completely move on from that plan.
Go off script, right?
Yeah, so I view it like a tightrope, where I'm on a tightrope, and if I'm off the tightrope, then maybe I'm not fully in this creative process. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's definitely just sort of being open to what the actors are doing, to what the different department heads are feeling, and that I'm just in charge of all these incredible artists and trying to guide the ship forward in a way that tells the story as best as I can.
Our managing editor, Chris Beecham, says Steven Spielberg's advice to all new directors is wear comfortable shoes. So keep that in mind, everyone. So we have a couple minutes left.
Get a good headset.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not those little things in your ear. Jeez.
For the final question, I kind of want to know if there are any Emmy voters watching. What do you have to say? What would it mean to you if you were to get up there, accept that trophy, and give a speech? Nneka, let's start with you.
I mean, it would mean so much for, just being a Black director, queer, just someone who typically you don't even see in the genre. It means a lot because it tells us that more of us can do this job. I didn't even know that this was a possibility of a job to do because I never seen anyone that looked like me being the head of that vision, and just knowing how much it takes to tell an authentic story, get people who've been in this industry to try a new way of doing things differently than they've, done them before, and getting them on board. And then also like maintaining the vision and working with talent like Lizzo and bringing that all together in unison. I feel like it's a big moment for plus size women. It's a big moment for women of color. It's a big moment for big girls. And I think that it will send a message to the world of how important it is for our voices to be heard and stories to be also told by people who also live the experience, which is important as well. And so I think that that is the main thing. It means a lot to representation and for people who look like us.
And Danny, what about you?
Well, for me, the whole experience of doing Dopesick and telling the story of the opioid crisis has been sort of an exercise in a story that nobody but wanted to make. And so the fact that we even got it made and that Hulu gave us this huge ad campaign and had this wonderful launch it was beyond my wildest expectations. And then for the show to have this impact and keep going, and now all these Emmy nominations for the show has been really, really gratifying, particularly for a show no one wanted to make, but also that it keeps the spotlight on the issues of the show. And any wins that the show gets will continue to do that. So for me, it's really about, it started at a very pure place, which was telling this story, exposing the crimes of Purdue Pharma that was run by the Sackler family to the nation in as dynamic and as compelling a way as possible. And then also at the same time, trying to bring a new understanding of addiction and what that meant, and to try to help overcome the stereotypes of addiction. In the case of Purdue, they blamed the people they got addicted for their own crimes, right? They called it hammering the abusers when in fact they were the real abusers. So anytime this show gets attention, for me, it's this sort of feeling of we're hammering the abusers, and the abusers are Purdue Pharma that was run by the Sackler family. So that's what this ultimately has all been about for me, and what it continues to be about through award season.
And Nick?
I'll keep this brief. If I get to win a third Emmy, I don't quite know what I'm going to do. I mean, it's beyond flattering, humbling, but I suppose, you know, what's going to affect me the most is just I'm so proud to be part of what is now a global phenomenon that started in a basement and now reaches across the globe. And it's basically, you know, spearheaded inclusion and acceptance for a whole generation. And I'm just going to be humbled and proud to be a small part of that. Yeah, it'll be amazing.
Karyn, close us out.
I think for me, the reason I wanted to tell the story was that it was about a group of really interesting women with really interesting problems. And I feel like if I were to win, I would be just sort of so joyous in sharing that with the men and women I made this show with, who all believe that, you know, the lives of girls and women are as important to humanity as the lives of everyone else. And so I just felt like it would be I feel like it would just be a vindication of our interest in these lives, and it'd be really humbling.
Thank you, everyone, for an amazing group chat. Best of luck at the Emmy Awards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
See you all there. Bye.